Welcome back to Wild Approach, where we explore ways of creating habitat for wildlife in our own gardens. In today's video, I'll be speaking about the fundamentals of wildlife habitat. What are the basic necessities of a wildlife garden? If you're wondering if your garden fits the bill, or if you're wanting to build a garden that will fit the bill, then you're in the right place. I'm going to get the basic requirements from a website called the National Wildlife Federation. You can find them at nwf.org. After I speak on these basics, I'll add my own tips at the end of the video. Water. According to the National Wildlife Federation, all animals need water to survive, and some need it for bathing or breeding as well. What can you do to create a water source in your own garden? In my experience, the easiest way to do this is to get a bird bath or an outdoor safe and food safe dish and fill it with water. I recommend you empty it at least once a week and refresh the water. Maybe even wash the dish or bird bath every once in a while, depending on how dirty it gets. Fresh and clean water is beloved by birds and other animals too. You may be surprised who all visits your water dish. This is why I love putting a dish on the ground rather than having a bird bath pedestal. Although I am thinking of getting one of those too. I've had birds visit my ground dish, of course, but I've also had chipmunks, groundhogs, wasps, and other critters visit it too. If you want to protect the bees and wasps when they visit, add some sticks or pebbles to the water so they can get out and not drown. I noticed that they are less likely to drown in the heat of the summer as my water dish dries very quickly, but I also have to fill it up more often in heat of summer. You can also add a fountain or pond. Birds love moving water, even more than still water. It will attract them like crazy. Enjoy watching the visitors to your water features and realize how you're helping your local wildlife. Food. Native plants are going to need to be the base for all your wildlife food needs. Native plants have co-evolved with the local wildlife, and it's vital that we plant diverse native plant gardens if possible, so these critters can get the most out of their limited habitat spaces. You'll provide for the most creatures if you start with keystone plants. The great thing about keystone native plants is that there are trees that are keystones, but there are also keystone herbaceous perennials. Here in the eastern United States, native oaks and cherries top the keystone tree list. Visit nwf.org to find the keystone species for your region. They also have a native plant finder that will help you figure out what butterflies and moths might use your plants. Use bonap.org to figure out what plants are native to your state and county in the United States. The best way to do this research is to go to Google and type in the native plant using its botanical name, and then after the botanical name, type BONAP, B-O-N-A-P. Hit enter. This should give you the link you need near the top or at the top of the list. It should take you to the BONAP site and show you a bunch of maps. Scroll down to the one you need to view. The botanical name is under the respective map. Think about these plants as ways to provide nectar, seeds, nuts, fruits, berries, foliage, pollen, and insects for the wildlife that visit your garden. The plants attract insects, which many of our birds need for feeding their young. Cover. Animals need cover from storms, and different critters may use different types of cover. Butterflies use trees, shrubs, and grasses, for example, to shelter from rain and wind. I've seen a silver-spotted skipper sheltering in my American elderberry just because it was a windy day. I've seen tiger swallowtail butterflies shelter inside the black cherry tree to get some shade. Even though butterflies need to sun on rocks and get warmth for flight, they can also get overheated in the hottest parts of summer and need some cover to take short breaks from the sun. Native grasses are great for our birds that nest on the ground and in these types of grasses. If native grasses will grow in your garden, it's a mistake to leave it off your list. I just finished adding a bunch of new grasses to my garden a couple weeks ago, and I can't wait to see them fill in and grow tall. Grasses are also used by butterflies and shrews for safety and shelter. The seeds of grasses also provide food for birds as well. In small gardens, try to strategize how you can get the most utility per planting. Can that keystone tree or shrub also provide cover, shelter, a place to raise young, as well as shade and a microclimate for the plants you want to grow beneath it? Win, win, and win. It also likely provides nectar or pollen or both via its flowers, and then later on, food for birds and mammals with its berries or fruits. In my area, goldenrods and asters are powerhouses of food, shelter, hunting ground, bee hotels, gall homes, butterfly and moth caterpillar food, cover for birds and critters, and beauty for the autumn garden. There are also keystone species, meaning that they host a ton of said caterpillars. Places to raise young. Birds, butterflies, moths, bees, and more wildlife need places to raise their young or lay their eggs. Butterflies lay eggs on host plants such as milkweed, oak trees, cherry trees, asters, violets, and more. Some birds like to use nest boxes and birdhouses. Other birds may nest on the ground, in grasses, or ground covers. Lots of birds love trees and shrubs for nesting. Think about how you could provide several different kinds of nesting and raising areas in your garden, even if your space is limited. I've personally added milkweed, trees, shrubs, grasses, and birdhouses. Vines are great too. Sometimes birds use vines for nesting. It's also a great idea to have grass clippings, mosses, twigs, small plant materials like leaves and other debris around for birds to use to line their nests. Too often, folks hire landscaping crews to blow away all the debris in the area, which means our feathered friends have to fly much further and risk themselves much more often to get their nest linings. Why not leave a small area of debris and moss for the birds to use if you can? I've got brush piles, leaf litter, mossy areas, twigs, grass clippings, dead plant matter, and so much more hidden around the garden in many spots, ready for use by birds and other critters. I've seen milkweed seed fluff be used in nests too. Stop removing the quote-unquote ugly stuff off of your property. Instead, spread it around your property in hiding spaces, or better yet, leave them where they are. Birds will thank you. Sustainable practices. Try your best to be mindful of the environment around you. What type of hardscape do you have? Can you create rain gardens, swells, ditches, etc. to carry rainwater and to help it slowly permeate your soil? Can you strategically place plants so that they help soak up the water runoff from your roof? Can you install a rain barrel? Also be mindful of any chemicals you use. Insecticides would be a no-go in a wildlife garden. Herbicide could be okay if done with the laws and instructions abided by. And I personally prefer to brush on herbicide on the stumps of invasive shrubs and trees rather than spraying. Follow the bottle's instructions carefully and wear PPE, personal protective equipment. Always follow local laws and ordinances when it comes to herbicide use. You also want to be mindful of where the water goes in your garden. Can you slow it down and soak it up before it reaches the ditches near the street? Try to slow the water down as much as possible for 2 reasons: prevention of flooding as well as prevention of polluting the waterways. In my garden, herbicide is a last resort. I use it specifically for huge invasive shrubs and trees, things that are non-native and invasive and too big to pull by hand or to dig with a shovel. There's a new method you can try that involves smothering the stump with plastic, I think, so if you want to try that instead, research that and see if it's a good method for you. Can't remember if it's plastic or fabric. Remember, my garden is only a 1/4 acre. It's the type of garden that seems really small to me when it comes to having room for all the things I want to plant, but it feels really huge when I'm trying to get rid of non-native invasive plants. Isn't that how it goes? Different property sizes may demand different invasive removal methods. Larger properties may require herbicide spray. Tiny properties and balcony gardens may never require herbicide use whatsoever. Remember that it's up to you, and make sure you just do your best to protect the planet and follow the local laws. Now, I told you that at the end of the video, I'd give my own added bonus tips. That's what this part is going to be. I suggest, if you're limited on space, you start with keystone species, and especially the smaller ones. Also, start with trying to attract your favorite animal. Is it a type of bird or a type of butterfly or what? What is your favorite critter? Try to attract that first. If its host plant fits in your garden, plant it. Plant its favorite native nectar plants in the butterfly example. I also suggest you keep a garden journal. It doesn't need to be complicated at all. Just write down animals and plants you see and document what you plant. I recommend writing down where you bought the plants and seeds from. It's best to buy your plants from local native plant nurseries rather than catch-all nurseries or big box stores. The reason is you want to buy from someone you can trust. You don't want to inadvertently buy plants that have been treated with neonicotinoids. According to Wikipedia, because they affect the central nervous system of insects, neonicotinoids kill or deleteriously affect a wide variety of both target and non-target insects. Neonicotinoids are water-soluble, so when the seed sprouts and grows, the developing plant absorbs the pesticide into its tissues as it takes in water. Once absorbed, neonicotinoids become present throughout the plant, including in its leaves, flowers, nectar, and pollen. Neonicotinoid use has been linked to adverse ecological effects, including risks to many non-target organisms and specifically on bees and pollinators. In 2022, the United States Environmental Protection Agency concluded that neonicotinoids are likely to adversely affect the majority of federally listed endangered or threatened species and of critical habitats. Neonicotinoids widely contaminate wetlands, streams, and rivers, and due to their widespread use, pollinating insects are chronically exposed to them. Sublethal effects from chronic low-level exposure to neonicotinoids in the environment are thought to be more common in bees than directly lethal effects. These effects upon bees include difficulty navigating, learning, and foraging, suppressed immune response, lower sperm viability, shortened lifespans of queens, and reduced numbers of new queens produced. End quote. So ask your local nursery if they use these on their plants. You don't want that in your garden, as that would defeat all that you're trying to accomplish. My final tip is to have fun and create the garden you want to be in. You'll want your garden to both serve the wildlife around you as well as yourself. Native plants are beautiful and ornamental too. The thing is, they are also vital for the local fauna. Pick keystone native plants, specialist native plants, and beautiful native plants too. Remember, right plant, right place. Have fun gardening, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and thanks for 1,000 subscribers. Bye, everyone. You all requested it, and it's finally here. Reduce Your Lawn shirts are now available in my brand new merch shop. Thanks so much for supporting the wildlife habitat we're creating. To support the channel, like the video, comment, and subscribe. You can also support my work by buying art from me at macylu.com. Thanks for watching!